AI, artificial intelligence, it's everywhere these days.
It really is.
And, you really sent me down the rabbit hole with this week's prep.
Oh, yeah.
Research papers, ethical dilemmas, predictions for the future. It's a lot.
It's a big topic, for sure. Lots to unpack.
Exactly. So, ready to dive in and try to understand what AI really is?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay, so we've got this research paper by Mahato, right?
Yeah, Mahato. That's a good place to start. Lays out the basics pretty well.
Perfect. Because, to be honest, sometimes I feel like I need a whole glossary just to understand what I'm reading about AI.
I know what you mean.
So let's back up for a second. What exactly is artificial intelligence?
Well, the way Mahato puts it, AI is when computer systems can do things that normally take human intelligence. Like, it's about making systems that can think, learn, solve problems the way we do.
Okay, so we're not talking about, like, robots taking over the world.
Not yet, anyway.
But it's more about getting those thought processes into a machine.
Exactly. And a big part of that is this idea of learning from patterns.
Go on.
So programmers, they train AI by feeding it tons and tons of data. And the AI uses that data to figure out relationships, make predictions about new info it gets.
Kind of like if you're teaching a kid to ride a bike.
Go on.
You can tell them what to do, but they have to actually do it, fall off a few times to really learn.
That's a great analogy. And just like people learn different skills, different types of AI are better at certain tasks.
Right. Makes sense.
And one area that's really taking off is something called deep learning. Mahato talks about it in the paper.
Deep learning. Okay, that sounds intense.
It's basically, imagine the human brain, all those connections.
Yeah.
Deep learning uses artificial neural networks, and those networks are modeled after the brain, so the AI can process information in a much more complex way.
So it's not just following a set of rules someone programmed in. It can actually learn and change on its own, like our brains can.
Exactly. And that's what's behind some of the really amazing AI stuff we're seeing now. Like, you know how your phone can organize your photos by faces now?
Yeah. It's kind of creepy how well it works.
Well, that's deep learning, specifically something called convolutional neural networks, CNNs for short.
CNN. So these CNN things, they're trained on, what, like millions of pictures so they can spot patterns?
Exactly. And that's how they know it's you in a photo, even if you've got sunglasses on.
Wild. Never realized that was AI at work.
Yeah.
So Mahato's paper, it talks about how this kind of AI is being used in all sorts of fields, right? Healthcare, self-driving cars.
It's everywhere.
Which is what makes this whole thing so fascinating. But also kind of like, where do we even start?
Well, I think a good place to start is by looking at what AI is already doing out in the world.
Okay, yeah, let's get practical.
Oh, yeah.
Let's get practical. What kind of stuff are we talking about here?
Well, we've got AI that's helping doctors diagnose diseases, even spotting things humans might miss.
Really? Like what?
Imagine AI looking at a medical scan, an X-ray or something, and it catches this tiny little detail, a shadow or anomaly, that a human doctor, even a trained one, might overlook.
Wow, so it's like having a second set of eyes, but like superpowered eyes.
Exactly. And not just that, we're talking about AI helping develop personalized treatments, figuring out someone's risk for certain diseases based on their data.
Okay, so huge potential for healthcare. But what about the other side of that? I mean, the Pew Research report, the one about the future of AI.
Yeah.
It mentioned something about AI and jobs, and it didn't sound great.
Right, yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? And it's not just about AI replacing jobs entirely. It's about how we adapt alongside this tech. Take healthcare, right? Maybe it's not about AI doctors replacing human doctors, but working together.
Combining their strengths.
Right. But that means we need to rethink how we train people for these fields, what skills they'll need to succeed.
Adaptation is key, for sure. And healthcare isn't the only place this is happening, right? I mean, we're talking factories running on AI, security systems that are practically predicting the future.
You got it. Take manufacturing, for example. AI can make production lines crazy efficient. It can even predict when a machine's about to break down before it actually happens.
Well, no more downtime.
Exactly. Huge implications for any industry.
Huge. But what about the people in those factories? That sounds like their jobs.
Well, it's a valid concern, and it's something we need to address head on. But think of it this way. As AI takes over the repetitive, potentially dangerous tasks, it opens up opportunities for people to do more creative, problem-solving work that AI just can't handle. The challenge is making sure people have the skills and support to transition into those new roles.
So we need to prioritize things like education and retraining programs to make sure everyone's prepared for this shift.
Exactly. And speaking of AI and jobs, let's talk about security. Remember that Mojado paper, how it mentioned AI analyzing security footage?
Oh yeah, like to prevent theft and stuff.
Right, but it goes way beyond that. We're talking about systems that can spot suspicious activity in real time, potentially even predicting where crime might happen.
Okay, now that's where things start to feel a little, I don't know, Minority Report.
Yeah.
Like, is this too much power to give to a machine?
That's the ethical tightrope we're walking, right?
Yeah.
It can enhance safety and security, but there's also the potential for misuse, like invasive surveillance.
Which is exactly what that newsletter you sent, the one about ethics.
Yeah.
To mention China and how they're using facial recognition tech. Kind of gives me the chills, not gonna lie.
Yeah, it raises some serious questions about privacy and how far is too far. It's a slippery slope, right?
Big time. And it's not just about being watched on the streets, right? With all this data AI relies on, it feels like our own personal information is becoming more and more vulnerable.
And that's why this whole conversation about responsible AI development is so crucial. We can't just focus on what AI can do. We have to think about how to use it ethically, responsibly, with safeguards in place to protect individual privacy and prevent misuse. We can't let this get away from us.
It's a lot, you know? We've got AI potentially revolutionizing healthcare, transforming manufacturing, even impacting law enforcement. And woven through all of that are these ethical questions about making sure this technology is used for good.
Exactly. And it doesn't stop there. Even education's being impacted. Imagine learning personalized to you, like having a tutor available 24/7. That's the potential of AI in education.
Okay, now that part actually sounds pretty cool. Personalized learning. Sign me up. But what about teachers? Could this lead to job losses in education too?
Well, it's not about replacing teachers altogether, more like giving them better tools. Imagine being able to tailor lessons to each student, really figure out who needs extra help with what.
Yeah, that makes sense. AI doing the heavy lifting so teachers can focus on the human side of things.
Exactly. But got to make sure all students have access to this tech, not just the privileged few. That's a whole other conversation about equality and resources.
Absolutely. And we need to be preparing students now for a world where they're working alongside AI.
Right, it's the future, whether we're ready for it or not.
So much to think about. Honestly, I'm kind of going back and forth between, like, this is amazing, and oh my gosh, what have we done?
You and me both. But hey, remember that Pew report you sent? The one about the future of AI?
Yeah, what about it?
They actually asked a bunch of experts that very question, about AI's impact.
Yeah, what'd they say?
Well, get this, 63% of them were optimistic. They think AI is going to have a mostly positive impact by 2030.
Okay, more optimistic than I would have guessed. But that still leaves a good chunk who aren't so sure, right?
Right. And it's not like it's AI good versus AI bad. It's more nuanced than that. Like one expert, Sonia Katyal, she says AI is going to force us to really confront our values.
Like what do you mean?
While take equality. If AI is automating all these jobs, it could mean some people have amazing opportunities while others are left in the dust. She's saying we need to be thinking about these social implications now.
Before it's too late.
Exactly. And another expert, Eric Brynjolfsson, he talks about the two sides of AI. He says, yeah, AI could help us solve huge problems like poverty or lack of education, but it could also make those problems worse if we're not careful. More inequality.
So it's this powerful tool, but like any tool, it depends on whose hands it's in.
That's the gist of it. And then there's Amy Webb, who's all about the future of work. She says we need to get ready for jobs to be constantly changing. People need to be learning new skills all the time.
Lifelong learning.
Exactly. Because it's not just about AI taking jobs away. It'll create new jobs, ones we can't even imagine right now.
It's a lot to wrap your head around. I got to say, I'm equal parts excited and terrified about this whole AI thing. It feels like a really crucial moment. The choices we're making now will determine what the future looks like.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And that actually reminds me, there's this quote from the Pew report, really got me thinking. It's from an expert named Simon Biggs. And he said, AI will reflect our values for better or worse.
Wow. So if AI is a reflection of us, what does that say about the future we're building?
Exactly. And that, I think, is the question we all need to be asking ourselves as we move into this new frontier.
Lots to ponder. Well, I guess that's what deep dives are for, right?
That's it.